Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Rad Gaming Podcast. I'm Pescador.
And I'm Jemshi. And in this episode of the podcast, we interview Crankage from Crankage Games. Crankage is an RPG developer who's developed over 5 of his own original titles. During our discussion, we go into how to market a game, how MMA is comparable to game development, and how confidence is important when creating content.
This episode of the Rad Gaming Podcast is sponsored by Centofiore. Centofiore is a lifestyle fashion brand that seeks beauty and cultural heritage and always strives to offer timeless and elegant style. Visit centofiore.com to join the family. That's CENTO-FIORE.com. So now it's time to develop a sixth sense of humor because we're going to go dive into the mind of Crankage Games. Can you walk us through some of your background?
Yeah, sure. As far as like game development or
anything you want to talk about, man.
All right. Well, I started game development. I think I've been doing it for about 2 years. I make vulgar comedy RPGs with South Park style humor. Always trying to push past that line a little bit. Wasn't my passion at first. I started out doing MMA since I was about 13 years old.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't. I've always played games my whole life, but I didn't start doing game development until I got really, really sick with pneumonia that lasted about 6 months.
Oh wow!
And it almost killed me. It was treatment resistant. Yeah, I've had pneumonia 7 times, almost died 3 of them.
Oh my God, man!
But this one was the worst. It was the worst, and like I said, treatment resistant, lasted 6 months. It was a real bad one, real bad strain. It killed a bunch of people. Your body had to just naturally fight it off. So in those 6 months, I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't do anything, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to just do nothing. So, and also I had hit a point where I'd been injured so many times and I had gotten sick so many times and had so much time off the gym that I was like, maybe I can't do this. Maybe this isn't the right career path for me, even though it's my passion. It's what I want to do. Maybe I can't. So I decided to look up YouTube tutorials on how to design games. And I just kind of taught myself over those 6 months. And then I made my I finished my first project and released it, and then it kind of went from there.
That's awesome. So how did you get pneumonia? Like, where do you live? What happened?
I just have a weak immune system. I've got an autoimmune disorder. So when I get sick, I've always been sick. I get sick every year. And I had bronchitis a lot growing up, and then it just kind of turned into pneumonia as an adult. So just them's the breaks.
So you said that you do vulgar comedy kind of games. What's the name of your game that you released?
I've released 5. I've written 6. Let's see. I've released Metal as Fuck. That was the first one. The Chronicles of Quiver Dick was the second one.
I saw your banner in the background. I was wondering what that was about.
Yeah. Quiver Dick's Terrible Tale for Terrible Parents to Read to Their Equally Terrible Children was my 3rd release. Deported, Drain the Swamp, and then Deported to Build That Wall was the next ones. Which was a break from like the RPG kind of genre. It was just a silly political parody, Men in Black, Pac-Man style mashup of a game. It was a fun little project that I wanted to work on to take a break from RPGs. So, and then I wrote Damned Daniel that was developed and just released less than 2 months ago by Rad Games. But I wrote the original script for it, and then she added her own touches into it and stuff, and that one turned out really good. All the games have been pretty well received and taken off. So
you've done what kind of software and stuff do you use to develop your games?
So I because I had like no prior knowledge, I went real simple. I went real easy. I went into RPG Maker, VX Ace at first, and then MV after. So there were so many hundreds of YouTube tutorials on how to do it. So it was real easy to teach myself. And then I took a lot of inspiration from the creators of South Park and what they had said basically starting out, where, they were talking about how the animation that they had to start with was so terrible. It was so awful. They were just using construction paper and just cutting out things and moving it frame by frame and all this stuff. But it was a big hit. And they said, crap is funny. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to look, it doesn't have to have a huge production value if the comedy is there.
Yeah.
So I figured, that was the best route to go. It was simple. It was easy to learn. It was something to get the jokes through. And yeah, it worked. So
use a lot of vulgar comedy. You said, is there anything that you got backlash about or anything like that?
Everything. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somebody's always going to get upset about something.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, it's been very well received. It's got, all the games have overwhelmingly positive status, not reviews wise, as far as like, they don't have enough reviews to be technically classified as overwhelmingly positive because they have to hit 500 reviews per game. But we're nearing the 500 review mark overall, and it's like 98% positive overall. So that's
awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, they've been doing real well. So the vast majority of people really like the games. Some of the games have 100% positive, and some of them have 95% plus. So it all equals out. But they're in Metal as Fuck. It ended up on Steam's top 250 hidden gems list, which was really cool. Which just basically means that it was one of the highest rated games for the number of people that bought it and played it, but it was just it didn't have the eyes on it. So that was
Gotcha.
kind of cool.
So what did you do when you published these games? Like, obviously you just didn't put it out there and hope people discovered it. So what did you do to kind of get the word out about your games? And
that's a whole nother story in itself. Prior to releasing the game, because honestly, when I finished Metal as Fuck, I hated it. Like I thought, this is a 4 out of 10 game. I don't even want to release it. And Red Mouse Games, who was there during the development process, she built the trailer and did the animation and some of the and did actually like almost all of the artwork for the trailer. I think she ended up she was like, you spent 6 months making it, put it out there, see what happens. Nobody's first game is good. Just put it out there. You never know. So I did, and then it ended up being really popular, which was awesome. But for marketing purposes, I talked to so many people before the release, and it was a real rough start because as well received as it was once people played it, it was hard to get people to play it. I had no name, I had again, first game using a program, using an engine that had a negative stigma attached to it. Because of how easy it is to use, that it even says in their marketing for it, so easy a child couldn't do it or make a game or something. And it's true. It's easy to learn, hard to master. It's a very in-depth program when you dive into it. But essentially what I did with it was, I made it more, I knew my limitations as a developer. I knew I'm not the best developer. I don't even know if I'd really classify myself as a developer, to be perfectly honest. I think technically I am. But
you made a game, so I guess
technically
take the title if you can.
Sure. But really it was just about the humor and the content of it. And that's what really pushed through. So I tried to market it as something a little bit different. I didn't sell people a product, because if you think about it, there's a million games out there. There's a million RPG Maker games out there specifically, and they're all they're all rehashed ideas and concepts and mechanics all kind of patched together and with a different title. So instead I sold people a feeling, and I said, I'm not even going to bother telling you what you can do in this game or whatever, but what I can promise is that if you play it, you're going to laugh. And that's, that's why people bought it. So they played it and they laughed and I was right, and that's all I ever wanted to do with it was if people were laughing, I hit my mark. So that's what ended up pushing it out there was I knew that, that people want to feel something when they played a game. And if they're smiling, they're having a good time. That's the whole point of games, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
if they're smiling and they're getting the humor and the jokes and they're coming through, then kind of hard to hate a game you're laughing at. So, as far as the amount of people I reached out to, well over 1,000 people I directly messaged and networked with that actually said, like straight up said, we're interested in the game. We want to play it when it releases. Let us know. And that was hard. That took months to talk to that many people and see who was interested, because for the 1,000 that were, there was a whole lot that weren't.
Yeah.
But I had 1,000 people confirm that they were interested. And then when release day came around, I messaged them. I spent days just sending out the messages. And out of those 1,000, I think, in the first week, only 100 people bought it or something. And that's including friends, family, and the people that
you reached out to.
The people that I reached out to, and that's including the random people on Steam that just came across it as well.
Yeah.
So it again, like I said, it's real hard when it's your first game and you have no name and you're not a part of a company or anything to get your stuff out there. But through pushing and thankfully people left reviews, those things help so much. They're so hard to get. Only about 1 in 150 people leave a review. So they're real hard to get. And every time somebody leaves a review, it puts it on that many more pages. So it's really the number one way that somebody can support an indie developer, especially, is by leaving a review, because because of the algorithms in the system, it makes it go that much further. One review can sell 100 more copies. So after talking to everybody, it was kind of a bummer, because all these people got me super hyped up and stuff. And then at the last minute, we're like, nah, I'll wait, and that's fine,
Right, they're going to wait on the reviews that you're hopefully trying to get from everyone else. And
yeah, and it was real tough. It was real tough. But so Metal as Fuck didn't actually really take off super hardcore until the Chronicles of Quiverdick was released, which was based off a character that people loved.
How much time had passed between Metal as Fuck and then the Chronicles? How much time? About a year.
Okay. It took me about 9 months to develop the Chronicles of Quiverdick. And then when I released that, it took off pretty well. It did better than Metal as Fuck. But what people really appreciated about it was that everybody that left a review, and I didn't tell anybody I was doing it, but everybody that left a review for Metal as Fuck, I took their names and I put them into the Chronicles of Quiverdick as a character.
That's awesome.
So the Chronicles of Quiverdick, 99% of it, if you're talking to a boss or an NPC or anything, they're all real people. They're either streamers or YouTubers or fans of the game that had no idea that they were going to be in it. And so there's over like 60 something YouTubers, fans, and streamers in there. And I actually went and did my research. I went to their channels and I pulled their themes or some interesting thing about them, and I wrote the entire story around them personally. So if they were to go back and play through Chronicles of Quiverdick, they would find their character in there and even have some personal references to them.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So it was my way of showing appreciation for the people that actually supported me, because it was really hard. It was a hard start.
I'm glad that people had that was well received by the people that were in the game. Because I'm sure, like, if there's somebody who might not have liked the game and left a bad review, I'm sure you probably didn't pick the bad review people.
No, I didn't. But thankfully, starting out,
it was overwhelmingly positive. So
yeah. Starting out for the first, I think it was like 6 or 7 months before I even got a negative. So like during the development process, there was actually no negative reviews to even pick from. You know, so that made it easy. But yeah, you know, I just tried writing as much as I could, and a lot of people were really surprised. They were talking about it on the forums and stuff, and they found their character in the game, and they were posting it everywhere. And then, you know, everybody was like, holy shit, I'm in a video game. You know what I mean? So then
was that part of like your marketing? Like, I guess in a sense for the second game, that's why it was probably received better.
It was in a way. It was received better before anybody even played the game because of the name Chronicles of Quiverdick. People are like, "What the fuck is this?" And they've got to click on it, right? They're like, "I want to know what this is."
It's all in the name.
Yeah. So and it was so cheap. It was I released it for $1.99 at first, and then released, I think I released it on a 40% off sale. And so for the first week, it was just over $1. And I figured if I can just get people to buy it, if I could just get people to give it a chance, then they'll be hooked, you know? And it was more of like an investment in that way where I'm not going to be making much money from the release, but it will build up a reputation for later releases. And that's how it worked. So.
And do you feel that that's paid off now?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's become something that I can do for a living now, and I can release games and earn an income where I don't have to worry too much. It's especially with the things that it's led into, you know, and the Twitter following that's come, and things have really blown up, especially recently. You know, I'm gaining like 6,000 followers on Twitter a month.
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, and it's just going bigger and bigger. I mean, I just started streaming 4 days ago.
Do you stream your own games?
I did for the first 2 streams just because people, and you know what, I didn't want to. I really didn't want to, but people had requested it because a lot of people don't have computers. They're solely like Xbox or PlayStation, you know? So, but they had heard a lot on Twitter, so they want to see them. So I knew that it would be an opportunity for them to see it. So they came in, and the first one I did was Metal as Fuck.
Right, you give your commentary and why you developed it the way you did.
Exactly, you know, and I think a lot of people, they got some insight from it because I went through it and I was very honest, you know, and I said, so here the reason why I made this way, and because that's the other thing is like, there's parts in the games where, again, I'm not the best developer, but I knew how to write things into the game to make it at least appear like it belonged. So, for example, there was a part in the Chronicles of Quiverdick, which was the second stream, where where you go and the main character like turns the key and the entire door breaks rather than opening like a normal door. The entire door breaks. And in a lot of old school RPGs, that's how kind of the doors were. You open a door, the door disappears. There's no more door on the screen. The door is just gone.
Right. Yeah.
And so a lot of people thought that it was like a parody, like a knock to the old RPGs with poor effects and stuff. And especially because I made a joke around it where the character says, "How the fuck did that happen? Why does a door just doesn't crumple like that? What is going on?" You know, and wrote a few jokes into it to make it seem like that. And then people found it funny. The reality of it is that I didn't know how to fucking make the door work the way that I wanted it to. So I threw in a door breaking sound effect and made jokes around it that targeted the event specifically. Because if you make fun of yourself before anybody else can make fun of you, then everybody's laughing with you instead of at you.
Yeah.
And
right, so you just turn those moments of, you know,
struggle
turning into I'll make something, you know, just some comedy in this. I'll just find a way to make this funny instead.
Exactly. So I tried to explain to people and gave them like some insight into why I developed certain events, why I did and how I did. And yeah, streaming has been really well received. Like it's really, we've already smashed all the partner requirements.
Oh, wow. That's
awesome. Oh, that's incredible.
For viewers. Yeah. I think I did an 11-hour stream for my third stream, and we averaged 86 viewers throughout the whole thing. Had a max of 140 at one point. So it's looking pretty good.
That's awesome. A lot of people are on Twitch, and they're working hard to get those kind of numbers, and you're able to kind of jump right in and start off on a good foot.
Yeah, and it's because I developed such a following on Twitter over over the time that I've been doing it, and it's been growing. It was a lot of it was a lot of struggle grinding up in a different way, like I didn't go through the Twitch grind that a lot of streamers
the traditional route where you start off small and go big.
Because you laid that foundation before. I mean, you just used everyone,
and it was a hard foundation to lay, because I don't take days off. I haven't had a day off in months. If I'm not developing or writing or now streaming, then it's marketing and promotion and stuff, and I take time to respond to everybody that messages me, which I get 20 to 30,000 notifications on Twitter a day.
How do you not get burnt out by doing all that? That's just insane.
I honestly get a very strong work ethic from my parents. My parents worked every day of their lives. They always stopped working. Even after they were retired, they still continued working. My dad was a jack of all trades. He worked his entire body to the bone where nothing in his body works anymore. My mom worked 18-hour days every day, managing a shop, and my parents were not wealthy, and but they passed on a good work ethic to us kids. And both my brothers are far more successful than I am. I'm the youngest in the family. They both own their businesses and stuff.
They do have more time, I guess. If they're older, they've had more time to build up those businesses.
Yeah, and we all started from the ground up. Like thankfully, I had some good business genes. My aunts and my uncles, they also started their own businesses, and they're all millionaires and stuff. They've made it ridiculously far. But yeah, like I said, my parents were not in the same boat. They just worked really fucking hard their entire lives doing things. My dad built every house that I've ever lived in.
How many houses is that?
I've lived in three, and he's built more.
3 houses. So he's built
more than that. Yeah, he worked construction. Like I said, he's a jack of all trades. He did drywall. He's done construction. He's done concrete and foundation. He did the electric and wiring in the house and everything. So he's and this house took him 11 years to build. So this was his last hurrah. His body don't work anymore. It's real sad. He's been through a lot of surgeries.
Sorry.
It's real tough. But it would be a disservice, to my dad to not work hard every day, especially because that's the thing. I'll never complain about my job. I get to sit behind a computer and work on games. There's people out there like risking their lives and shit. I'll never complain, no matter how hard it gets or how many hours I put in. When I'm done working in a day, when I fall asleep at my computer, like I go all day long. And so not only is it easy not to get burnt out, because I would feel guilty if I wasn't working, but it's also easy because I know what it's like to not be where I want to be. And I don't want time to pass and then I think, damn, 3 months
the things that you didn't do.
Yeah, because even if we push 1% every day, those 1% add up. If we make even 1% of progress, we're going to get to where we want, so I don't want 3 months to pass and I just think, fuck, man, like I'm exactly where I was 3 months ago, So I don't have a lot of motivation. I just have a lot of discipline. I just do things even though I don't want to do them.
So what were you doing before you started like developing games kind of before it became your full-time job? Like, and how did you make that switch to full-time? Like, was that, all right, I'll just let you go ahead.
That's fine. Well, I did a few different things. MMA was never a financial career for me. I never made it to the point where I could make money from it. It was just a very, very, very big passion, but it did teach me a lot of things, not just physically, but it taught me mentally how to keep pushing when you don't want to push. And it taught me a lot about business specifically because I followed the business and I followed the contracts of professional fighters that fought in the UFC. And so I was a bigger part of the behind the scenes of people's lives and stuff, and saw the hardships and the contracts and getting screwed over by shitty agents and all sorts of stuff. So I learned a lot about business through that, which, truly MMA it's entertainment. It's, people look at it and especially fighters, a lot of fighters, they look at it like it's a sport, and it is a sport, but it's also the entertainment industry. So
that's why Conor McGregor does what he does. I mean, he's brilliant, and everyone hates him for how cocky and arrogant he is, but it's for the entertainment value. I mean, he sells those tickets because he's an ass, you know, and he gets into people's heads, and that's just how he wins. Like, he's a great counterpuncher. He's fantastic at it. He paved the way for getting in people's heads. Like, he is that guy.
And he's honestly, he's a very nice guy in real life. I've never personally met him. One of my very first coach actually got his black belt from a guy that flew overseas to train jiu-jitsu with him. And I'm telling you right now, the guy did not like Conor McGregor before he met him. He thought he was an arrogant prick, and he did not like him, but he was offered a nice paycheck to go over there and do some things. And he did. And after he came back, he said, I'll never say a bad thing about the guy again. Because not only
just for show.
Yeah, he says not only is his work ethic absolutely insane, and he's very, very talented, a lot more talented than people give him credit for, but he's a genuinely nice guy. So
that's crazy. So what style of martial arts did you learn?
Oh, I went straight into MMA. As soon as I was 13, we did Muay Thai kickboxing, we did boxing, we did wrestling, we did jiu-jitsu. I didn't start with a traditional martial art. I just went straight into MMA.
I got you. So you didn't really pick a style so much. I mean, I know that each style is completely different from the other one. I mean, I did Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a while, but I know that Muay Thai was a different type of martial arts in the sense that it was more discipline. And I really like that aspect of it. But what did you really like about it? I mean, what was your favorite part about it?
I honestly liked everything about it. I would say that my least favorite part, the least fun part, was wrestling. Unfortunately, but I loved jiu-jitsu, and I loved Muay Thai, and I loved boxing and stuff. So, and the wrestling was a necessity. It was something that, again, it wasn't the most fun thing for me to do, but I knew that it needed to be done. Very, very, very important, super important. Because if you can control where the fight goes, then you can, that's kind of a big deal.
Worked heavy on your ground game, huh?
So I would say jiu-jitsu was probably my favorite mentally, because it was a chess match. It was always, if they're going to do this, then you do this. Yeah. But then if you do this, they're going to do this. And it's just a constant match, and you've got to set people up multiple moves in advance. So it becomes where it's like, I'm going to do this, so they think that I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then when they do this, then we're going to do this, so on and so forth. So I liked the mental part of it. Muay Thai was like that, like stand-up was like that, but I feel like a little bit more simplified and faster paced. But yeah, I liked it all.
See, that's what people don't really understand is when, MMA fighters, they go in the octagon, it's a lot of planning. Like, there's a lot of mental things that happen that people don't really pick up on. I know that when you go to the ground, it's very difficult because one false move can, you can get choked out, knocked out, anything you possibly can. And that's
Absolutely.
That's so crazy that you have to understand what your opponent is capable of doing. I mean, that's the whole point of it too. So you have to respect your opponent enough to understand their style of, attack. So, if you know that someone's a chokeout artist, if I put my arm here, he can put me in a rear naked choke very easily by, flipping his leg over. And you have to think that in a split second. That's insane.
Yeah. And, you don't have a lot of time to think as well when you're in that, like you said, a split second. And that's why it's very important to drill and drill and drill. So then it becomes habit. It becomes instinct, because you don't have time to think. And you, as a matter of fact, when the adrenaline is pumping, you're not thinking. It's all reaction based. So if you drilled something a certain way, that's how your body is going to do it. Even if which is why it's important to practice the right habits, because if you practice bad habits, that's exactly what your body is going to do.
Muscle memory, yeah.
And because like I said, you don't even think. You only react, and that's where I really loved the mental part of it too. Because what's interesting is a lot of people, Conor McGregor for one, but also Anderson Silva, they have a particular style, and they do everything traditionally wrong. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. But if you think about it, this is why they're successful. You're not supposed to have your hands down. You're not supposed to. How do people train in the gym? They train traditional. They train. Their muscle memory is built around watching somebody and what they're supposed to do. So when they go in there and they have a different style, and they're not used to fighting somebody, they're not used to training somebody or training against somebody that's got their hands down and moving their hands all around and doing spinning shit and just different things. So when they go in there, when they put their hands down or they move a certain way or whatever, their muscle memory reacts a certain way, because Anderson Silva and Conor McGregor, they know how a traditional instinctual movement is going to do, and then they counter off of it.
Yeah.
So they're going in there doing things wrong on purpose because it can't be trained.
Capitalize off your mistake.
Exactly. They're using your natural human instincts against you, and that's what makes them successful. So
and that's an excellent point that you bring up, because I know that Conor loves the counterpunch, and then him just getting in your head before everything even happens. He just sets you exactly where you want to, because before this, it was all about respect for the most part. I mean, people were a little nasty outside, trash talked a little bit here and there, but like nothing to the extent that Conor did. So when he's brought this to the table for MMA, like just, calling people out in the middle and like weigh-ins and saying stuff, like it's all part of his chess match that he was playing out. And it was brilliant, because if you truly think about it, the guy was getting in your head before you fought. So when you get into that octagon with him, you're like, man, I want to knock this dude out. I want to just knock him out so bad to make him look like a fool. So their game is already compromised. They want to knock him out. They don't want to, play the chess match. They just want to embarrass him. So they go in, he does what he does. He drops his hands, and he kind of just, makes fun of them in a sense. He'll move a certain way and kind of mock them or something, and then they go in for a punch, and he just slips it and gives them a nice left and just drops them. And it's just amazing, absolutely amazing.
And that is there's actually it's kind of multifaceted in a way, because while that's true that he does get into their heads and they do get angry and stuff, what that does mentally actually affects them incredibly physically. Because the biggest part of it, because like I said, when you go in there and you start and the adrenaline is pumping and it's based on instincts and stuff, a lot of times that emotion, it does go out the window a little bit, and that thought goes out the window a little bit. So getting in the head beforehand, it doesn't affect as much as one would think in there. For some it does. For some it does, for sure. The more professional ones, it doesn't. But it's what happens before the fight even starts. That the biggest effect that takes place. And that is an adrenaline dump. And it's the pressure, it's the added pressure of, I'm really mad at this guy and we're not in there and instincts haven't kicked in. And it gets the adrenaline flowing early. But also, what happens is it's the added pressure of, I don't want this guy to talk shit to me and then him beat me and I look stupid. So what ends up happening is it causes an anxiety spike, and it causes the nerves to go, and it makes the body release a whole bunch of negative hormones that you don't want to deal with. So by the time you get in there, and we've seen it happen to a lot of his earlier opponents before people kind of caught on to what he was doing and stuff, and learned to deal with it better. Yeah, and even Chad Mendes, even though he didn't have a full training camp and stuff, the reason why he gassed as heavy as he did, or Diego Brandao, is that who he fought? Anyways, hopefully that's.
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Not 100% sure, but I think so.
I hope I got the name. It was so long ago.
Yeah.
But they gassed after the first round, and the reason was because of that adrenaline dump. You can gas from an adrenaline dump, no matter how well trained you are. It is a bad thing, and it's mental. And that's what he's doing, is he's getting in people's heads, and he's making their body again work against them naturally, and they can't even help it. They can't help it. It's not up to them. That is what their body's going to do because they're affected mentally. And then they don't perform right. It's very smart. And then as far as his counter work goes, he's a master of range deception. The way that he, because a lot of people don't realize this, but the way that he places his feet, the way that his legs his base is very long. People think that your head is where you are, but that's not true. Your head, that is not where you are. The range of how far you can hit somebody is based on your front foot.
Yeah.
So what he's doing is he's baiting people in. He's moving his feet when he's bringing people in, or he's moving forward. He is placing his feet at a range where people don't think that they can be hit because his head is so far away, but his foot is so close. So when he's able to generate so much range in such a short amount of time, and he disguises his footwork with his upper body movements. So when he slips in and he slips out, again, people go in and they try and hit him and stuff, but he's so much closer than they'll ever realize because they're not paying attention to where his front foot is. And Floyd Mayweather does it as well. He's probably the best at it, and Connor's probably second.
Just his stride. He has he has long legs, and it just for him to do that and just put a big wide stance too, and kind of pull his body back a little bit. You're absolutely right. He does bait them in, and that's what he's fantastic at.
For sure.
Anderson Silva, he kind of has that long base too. Like he has those long, devastating legs, man. I'm sorry, I can go on talking about MMA all day. I love it. I absolutely do.
And speaking of Anderson Silva, that's why he had the style that he had as well. As a lot of people thought, oh, he's got his hands down. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. Well, that served a couple of purposes. He knew his strengths and he knew his weaknesses, and he knew that his takedown defense was not where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And the lower that you have your hands down, the quicker you are to sprawl on somebody, the quicker you are to defend a takedown. So it served two purposes. It was to trick opponents and be flashy and stuff, and get in people's heads and everything, and set up your shots while striking. But it was also just as defensive as it was offensive.
Are you up to date on current MMA boxing? Like, do you always keep up to date on what's going on in that scene? Or
I haven't seen. I think I haven't seen the last two MMA things. I was, until I got very, very, very busy in these last 2 months. But yeah, I don't think I've seen the last two UFC events, and I like to keep up to date on all of them. I watch Bellator as well. I just any of it,
So what were you working on in these past 2 months? Is it a new game release, or
is it
coming soon, or?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just Twitter. That took up so much time, so much time. I've got messages from a few days ago that I've been trying to get to. I spent like 8 hours trying to respond to DMs yesterday. Jesus. And
do you respond to every message you get? Is that like a goal that you have, or?
Yeah. Because the way I look at it is, if somebody's taking the time to send a message, then they deserve a response. You know, I don't like to be ignored, and I wouldn't want to ignore anybody. So if they're taking the time to message me, I'm going to take the time to respond. It might take me a while, but I'll get back to it.
So when you were developing your game, I know you were talking about your release date. I'm kind of curious, just like, how did you set that for yourself? Like, how did you know that I'm releasing the game on this day, having not, like, were you still in development, or did you finish the game, or like, what made you figure that out? I finished
the game, and then I set a release date because once I finished it, I was like, I don't even know if I want to release this, you know, like, it's done, but I don't know if I want to put it out there. So it had about the soonest, like, I was already talking to people about it even before I had a release date, you know, and they were always like, well, you know, tell me when you can release it. Tell me when you can release it. So when I got set up with Steam and everything, at the time, I actually had to wait 2 months to release it, even though it was done. So there was a coming soon store page. We had to get the trailer done. We had to get all sorts of stuff done. So, but once it was done, you know, then 2 months and it was out there.
So how did you even do this? You said you started with RPG Maker. Like, what is the entire process? Because to be honest, I don't know how to develop a game, and I know there's some people out there that really want to do it. So maybe like walk us through the process of that, you know, entire journey for yourself.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, it was just looking up. I went and I bought RPG Maker. I started with VX Ace. Now they've got MV out. So I've used RPG Maker MV for anything past Metal as Fuck, which I'd highly recommend it. And especially when it goes on sale for like $20. Like, if you don't know anything about making games, I would recommend starting with that program, because the things it'll teach you, you can actually use and branch out to more advanced programs. So it's it's an easy, good one to learn, especially because there's hundreds of YouTube tutorials that are very solid.
Right, and that's one thing that I find key with learning anything, really, is like, if you're going to pick a software, find one that has like a community around it.
Yeah.
People are always asking questions. You can go to forums. Like, that's why a lot of people use Adobe and like all those software too. Like, just they find the thing that everyone else is using because they've had the same problems as you. So
exactly. And the RPG Maker community, you can always get an answer on the forums. Usually 90% of the time you can get an answer on the forums. If somebody hasn't already asked it, somebody will answer you. And, you know, so you can actually get direct help just from people, which is really nice, because there were so many times where I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I was like, I have an issue, guys. Like, I remember in the beginning stages, I spent 8 hours, sometimes even multiple days, but usually it was like 8 hours trying to fix a 30-second issue, you know,
but you just didn't know how to get to that, you know, solution. Yeah. Like, oh, it's just a matter of flipping this variable or something like that. Or
and you know, it took like 6 months to make Metal as Fuck. I think I can do it in about 2 months now, you know. So you learn a whole lot, and then you get quicker at it, and there's not as much buggy shit happening because you know what to expect. Something always goes wrong, though. I mean, no matter what you do, something's always going to go wrong.
Yeah.
But you know, the more you do it, the quicker you get and the more you learn. But so I would recommend, if you want to get into game making, I would start there, especially you know, if you don't know a whole lot, you haven't gone to school for it and stuff. And if you have gone to school and you did learn computer programming, you do know languages and stuff, you could probably pick the program up and learn it even without tutorials. You could probably learn it in a week or so and understand, you know, the basics of it.
Yeah.
So it does translate pretty well if you have previous experience. And I would start there, and I would the biggest advice that I've learned is that, and this is a real statistic, 99.9% of all developers fail because they don't release a game. They work real hard. even for years. They work for years, and then something goes wrong, something, financially in their life, it doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
Or
they just had a roadblock in development, right?
Yeah, and literally 99. They say that if you even finish a product and you release it for sale, you're automatically, even if it only sells one copy, you are automatically in the elite small percentage of people that actually start building and then just never get there. So 99.9% of all people who start development never finish a project.
So that kind of motivated you to kind of like, this will get me ahead of everyone else that's developing games right now because I have something.
Yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, 99.9% of the ones that do release a product never release a second one because they just went through all that hell and they probably saw very limited return because development is not, or releasing a game and making a living, it's equally important to promote your product, and a lot of people don't know how. The business side of it is very, very important because it doesn't matter how good your game is if nobody knows it exists.
How did you go about promoting it?
Right, because you reached out to everyone on Twitter. Was that, or was that mostly it, or did you try anything else?
I promoted it through a lot of Discords. I was a part of a lot of gaming communities, and I had a lot of friends. I played a lot of online MMOs and stuff for a while, and I reached out to a lot of friends and tried to get them to spread it around as well. And at the time I had a Facebook. I don't have a Facebook anymore, but at the time I had a Facebook and
was
I joined
it a Facebook page or was it a Facebook like a?
It was a personal
profile?
It was a personal Facebook. Yeah, and I joined some gaming communities and tried spreading it there and stuff like that, just anywhere I could get it. But one thing I learned is I think the main one was Twitter. Twitter is what really brought it out there, because again, even if people do know it exists, they don't know that it's necessarily good. It's hard. It's real hard to get people to try it.
So what did you say in these messages? Where like, how did you even pitch the game? Like, obviously you've got a very vulgar humor game. Like, how did you even pitch that to people? Because obviously some people might not even receive that well. They might just be like, "Hey, this is not my not my type of humor."
That's a good question. I think what I found very, very quick that they're not going to be interested in your product necessarily, because nobody, no matter what you're selling, nobody is going to care more about your product than you. It is yours. It's not their dream what you're doing. It's not their dream. It's not their passion. Everybody's got their own thing that they're selling. Everybody's got their own thing. So the way that I found to get support is, again, I learned very early on, you get what you give. So I supported a lot of people. I supported a hell of a lot of people. I joined streams. I posted a lot. I talked to people. I made real connections with people. And I found that at first, starting out, only about 10% of people really cared back, and that's fine, but that 10% adds up. And at first, that 10%, you may support 10 people and you may get one, but you support 100 and then you'll have 10, and you support 1,000, you'll have 100, and that 10% adds up, and it gets easier and easier the more you do it, and the more support you have, the more support you'll end up getting, because word of mouth is very important. So it was a real big struggle at first, very big struggle, because on Twitter, I'm gaining 6,000 followers a month now, very consistently. There were times where a month would go by and I would lose 10. I would lose 10 followers, wouldn't gain any. And it was, like I said, it was a very big struggle.
So what do you attribute to the growth on Twitter? Because 6,000 per month is insane.
It sounds like it's nothing right now. He's like, it's just 6,000 per month,
Yeah. Well, I promote my personality. I'm genuine, and I don't care what people think. I don't care whether they get offended or not, because that's, obviously I'm not intentionally trying to offend anybody, but I also recognize that no matter what you do, somebody is going to get offended, and that's okay.
Once you've accepted that, you've kind of been able to build out your humor.
Yeah, I don't promote my games heavily. I really don't. I would say even about 5% of everything I post on Twitter is my games, even if that. And because again, and I've had so many people message me and say, honestly, I didn't give a fuck about your games, dude. Like I didn't care. I just followed you. I followed you because you're funny. I followed you because of the shit that you post. I followed you because it's your personality. And I'm just really glad that I tried your games because I actually really ended up enjoying it. And I said, trust me. I don't blame you. That's pretty much what I get from everybody. You know, the thing is, and there's so many developers struggling. And that's because they're posting about their games. And if nobody knows you and you have no reputation, they have nothing to go off of. These big companies can say, hey, we're releasing a game, and they already have a following. And no matter what, people are going to be like, I've played a bunch of Blizzard games. I know that I'm probably going to like this Blizzard game. I'm going to buy it.
So you say the mistake is from these indie developers, like the ones that are starting out, is that they try to mimic what the bigger industry company, big game industries are doing?
Well, they just focus strictly on promotion, and not put so much about themselves.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's no heart in it and there's no emotion in it because people, like I said, it goes right back to your games being pretty much the same old shit, the same mechanics, just recycled and renamed and recolored and things like that. Unless your game has something very, very different to offer, very different, which it probably does not. You've got to make somebody feel something because people will remember how you made them feel. And if you can make them feel something, then they'll be more interested. And when they're interested, then, maybe they're willing to give your product a try. But if you're just going to advertise your product and say, oh, today we added in this or that, that's good. That's good once you already have a following. But if you don't have a following, it's very hard to get people to give a shit.
So where did you get your, I guess, comedic personality from? Where does that come from? Do you have a specific comedian that you really enjoy listening to or kind of mimic yourself off of?
I have, honestly, I would say I got my humor, at least, or my sense of humor from my dad and my grandpa and my brothers. And so we always just would say jokes that were very inappropriate and probably shouldn't have said at certain times. But, we just kind of, it is what it is, like I said, somebody's always going to get offended or something. But if people are laughing, as long as you're not being hurtful, because there's a difference between being offensive and being hurtful and something for the sake of comedy and humor.
You're not singling somebody out or. Yeah. Comedy is supposed to be about laughing about the shittiness of the world and getting through it and using it as a coping mechanism, and not focusing on the negative. It's not meant to hurt people or anything, but some people take things a certain way. Yeah. But I would say that as far as comedians go, I have a lot of favorite comedians. Jimmy Carr is probably one of my favorite. I like Dave Attell a lot. I like Jeff Ross. I like even like Frankie Boyle and oh shit, why am I drawing a blank? His face is in my head, but I don't. I like Ricky Gervais.
Gervais is really funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But is that
Joe Rogan?
Oh, I love Joe Rogan. He actually talks a lot about towing the line, because there's that line that people find offensive and funny, and he said it's the art of basically walking that line that gets you to where you're at. How do you find that line? Because if you go too far over that line, there's no coming back anymore. I mean, people these days, they get, like you said, they get very offended. So how do you know how to toe that line? I'd be afraid that I'd step over that line and just be like, okay, well, great. I just completely thrashed my name. Now I have to do something about
your
that.
reputation's ruined, and you got to start over.
Sure. I think that it is very hard. It is a little bit, because a lot of times I get nervous before I tweet something, and I get this feeling like, ooh, I don't know if I should, I don't know, but yeah. But then, and sometimes you fuck up. Sometimes you say something you shouldn't, but
that's what the delete tweet is for.
Right. And the other thing I learned though as well is that, and I think that that's kind of why I built my following, is because when somebody would get offended by something, I don't offer any apologies. If they're offended by it, then fine. I typically, if it builds up enough offense, I double down on it, and I send out another one. I send out another something. I make a joke about them being offended about it, and then I go from there, because like I said, there's only 1% of people getting offended. Yeah. They just happen to be the noisiest ones, And
I guess if you're making jokes and you're always stepping back, then like people aren't going to really your jokes have less value and like comedic value. Because like, oh, you're just going to take that back. You're just trying to say something.
Yeah, exactly. And there, there is a line. There is a line, and I think that we can kind of look at that line from the mistakes of other people, and we could say, okay, well, we saw what happened when this person did this. Yeah. Let's not go there. Let's not, that ruined their career. We're going to stay away from that one, But there is a lot of very successful people. There's some things that I can't say because I don't have the following that they do. There's some things that I would, and which is why I keep them in my games. My games are more crude than I am on Twitter, and there's
it's like you could make it a separate entity from yourself, just kind of like that's my game.
Your alter ego, things that you actually want to say go into your game.
Right, and the reason for that is because Twitter is it's an open platform, whereas like it's one thing to make an offensive joke when you're doing a comedy routine on a stage, because people know what to expect. They bought the ticket, and they're going into it knowing that there's going to be vulgar jokes. On Twitter, it's a little bit harder because anybody can see it, whether they want to or not. They're going to scroll that page, and they're going to, it's going to pop up if they're following somebody that makes this, and then they're going to read it, and then they may react a certain way. And if you aren't well known, you're going to come under a lot of fire, which is why I push the line as much as I can openly, while also knowing I keep the more crude stuff in the games because people at least know what to expect, and I have a store page with the content warning telling people exactly what they're going to get in the games, so they know that, okay, I will buy this ticket for this show.
Gotcha. So but you can't really get that kind of
But can they actually be mentally prepared for your game? Because it sounds like it's a doozy. Like it sounds like I'm going to go in and shots are going to be fired all over the place, my man. I like that kind of like comedy, but I mean, it's not for everybody.
Right. Yeah. And that's right. Which is kind of, can they be mentally prepared for? I think if they play enough of the games, yes, but I put so much new stuff where there's new jokes and there's new things and there's new lines in every game. So
always something to catch them off guard.
Yeah. And I tried to follow the South Park model of it, where if you're going to make fun of somebody, you've got to make fun of everybody.
Yeah.
You have to.
Nobody's safe.
Yeah. You can't focus on a group of people or something, and you can't focus on, and then not somebody else. You have to make fun of everybody, and, which again, when you make fun of everybody, somebody's going to get offended by something. They'll find that 99% of the jokes they will laugh at, and then they'll find that one and they're like, I don't know about that.
Or they'll get offended that you weren't making jokes about them.
Sure. Can't please everybody.
So what can we expect from you in the future?
Well, I mean, streaming has really started to take off. So I think that for this little bit here, I'm pushing real hard. And if the partner thing goes through and things are going good, I'm going to be actually streaming game development.
So your whole process, just your day to day.
Yeah, and then I'm going to be including the audience into the creation of the game as well.
I'll let the people pick and choose. Maybe like give them an option to be like, hey, should they say this, or this? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I'm going to be pulling ideas from the chat, and I'm gonna be just including everybody. You know, I told everybody we're going to be building games together, and the audience will influence how the games go and the dialogue and everything, and it'll be something that we create together.
That's really an awesome idea. I better see something with Jemshi and Pescador involved in this now. That's what I'm expecting.
Now that you said it, how can I not?
I'll take that. And I'll make a clip of this and I'll loop it over and over again. If you don't do it, I'll send it to you every day.
All right, sounds good.
No, but I just want to say, man, thank you so much for being here and being on the podcast. We honestly really appreciate it. And it sounds like the sky's the limit for you. I mean, it sounds like your games are really starting to pick up. You know, social media is really starting to pick up, and streaming for you is starting to pick up. So that's awesome. That's huge. So thank you for taking the time.
That sounds like the year for you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
And thanks again to Crankage for coming onto the podcast. You can keep up to date with his game development on Twitch at twitch.tv/Crankage Games.
And make sure you stay tuned for our next episode of the podcast. We release a new episode every Wednesday and Friday. And as always, stay rad, comrades.